Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Wisco Whiskey Review. My name's Jeff, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different here. Instead of reviewing just one whiskey and kind of going over it, reviewing it, rating it, we're going to take a look at 4 different bourbons here that I think would pair well with Reese's Easter candy. Those 4 bourbons today are going to be Jim Beam Distiller's Cut. So this is a 100 proof Jim Beam product. I believe you can still find it. What I try to do is find 4 still widely available bourbons. If you want to recreate this or try this at home. So this is a Jim Beam 100 proof. This is uncut, unfiltered. Now, I think you can still find this on shelves. If you can't, I would just substitute that with any other Jim Beam expression. I don't know all the different proofs of all their expressions. They have quite a few. But I know they have like the repeal batch, the black or extra black. I think they have an extra oaked one. So they have quite a few different varieties other than just the white label. And I know that one's 80 proof. So if you can find something that's Jim Beam, it's a little bit higher proof than the 80, that would be a good substitution. This one is the Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. And again, this is another 100 proof one. The Jim Beam is aged 5 to 6 years. The Evan Williams, I don't know the exact year on it, but being bottled in bond has to be at least 4 years old. So those are going to be probably similar as far as the proof and the age goes. This one had to include the Wild Turkey 101. Now this is widely available. You can find it pretty much anywhere. I believe it's about probably a $25 to $30 bottle, depending on where you live and stuff like that. But again, you can find it anywhere. It's a nice budget bourbon. The proof point's really good. It's only 1 proof higher than the other. So again, I'm trying to keep it all kind of around the same proof point, because if you start mixing different bourbons with way different proof points, then you kind of don't get a fair sense of pairing them together or comparing the bourbons. So this is a higher rye mash bill than the other ones, meaning it's probably gonna have a little bit more spice to it. The last one here we've got is Larceny 92 proof, which is their standard. And this one is the only one that's a wheated bourbon. Now again, with this one being a high rye mash bill, this one is a wheat mash bill, meaning that, again, corn is the #1 ingredient and the #1 grain, but then wheat is gonna be the second highest one in there. And then usually malted barley follows that. All right, so now that we've kind of introduced the bourbons, again, we're going to be kind of taste testing these to see which pairs best with Reese's peanut butter eggs. Now, some people like pairing different chocolates with bourbons. Some people like pairing a whole bunch of different other things with bourbons. But I think chocolate, with Easter coming right around, I thought it'd be fun to do this. So what we'll do is we'll start on this side over here. And again, these are in order. So this is the Jim Beam, Evan Williams, Wild Turkey, and the Larceny. I'll take a sip of the bourbon first. Take about a half egg or a bite of the Reese's. Take another sip of the bourbon, and we'll just see how it works. So we'll start with this one here on this side. This is the Jim Beam Distiller's Cut. You got 100 proof. So again, first, usually what you want to do is nose the whiskey before you take a sip. That just kind of helps get your senses ready for what's coming. All right, so this has a really good nose to it. There's not a ton that's jumping out of the Glencairn at me, or the glass. But you do get a lot of those like kind of caramel, vanilla, baking spices, stuff like that you would generally get from a bourbon. It definitely has a sweeter nose going on here. So what we'll do is we'll try a sip of this, then we'll go to the candy, and then we'll go back to the bourbon and see kind of how it fares out. All right, so even on that first initial sip, I don't know if it's just self-suggestion, but I'm getting a little bit of peanut butter already just on the flavor of this without even having any of the candy. Now that we've done that, we'll take a bite of the egg here. All right, so now that I've had a bite of the candy, we'll go back to the bourbon. So it's kind of interesting that kind of when you're pairing This Reese's with this Jim Beam Distiller's Cut, it almost brings out more sweetness in the bourbon than I was getting before. I don't know if that's, you know, not mixing the two in my mouth together, but some of that sugar from the candy could just be residual still in my mouth, mixed with the bourbon, kind of gives it a sweeter kick or sweeter flavor. That's really good together. Again, Jim Beam, and then Heaven Hill, which makes Evan Williams and also makes Larceny. They both have, you know, peanut butter kind of profile. A lot of people get those kind of notes just in the bourbon alone. When you're comparing whiskeys or doing a flight, I recommend having some water nearby, because that just kind of cleanses the palate and just kind of refreshes, so that you're not kind of mixing some of the flavors, you know, going from sip to sip to sip. We'll go for a sip of the Evan Williams bottled in Bond 100 proof. Now this one, to me, compared to the Jim Beam, doesn't have quite of a sweet flavor, a sweet palate right off the bat there, right on the beginning. I'm getting more of like the caramel than I am kind of with the peanut butter that I was getting with the Distiller's Cut. Now the Distiller's Cut is unfiltered, so that is going to change a little bit of like the mouthfeel. Sometimes you get a little bit more of just flavor coming through if it's unfiltered. The rest of these three are going to be filtered. So again, that has more to do with the mouthfeel than it does flavors, but I wanted to mention that just in case anyone was curious. All right, so we had a sip of the Evan Williams. We'll have another bite of the candy here, the Reese's. Okay, so we'll go for another nose of the Evan Williams. Now again, kind of like with the Jim Beam, after I had some of the candy, I'm definitely, at least it's, again, could be just suggestion, but this smells a little bit sweeter on the nose than the first time. So we'll take a sip. There wasn't much, or I should say there wasn't as much of a difference, I would say, between the first sip of this and the candy and then the second sip of this as there was with the Jim Beam so far. I'd say that the candy changed the flavor the most of the Jim Beam, but again, it could be different for any of them. So now we're gonna do the Wild Turkey 101. Now again, this is the one with the higher rye mash bill, so this one might have a little bit more spice to it. It's also the highest proof, but again, not much different or not much higher than those. It's only 1 proof higher, 0.5% or 0.5% alcohol, so you're not gonna be able to tell much. So this does have a little bit different of a nose than the other two do. They all kind of have their own different personalities and noses, palates. All right, we'll take a sip here. Cheers, guys. Yeah, so that one, it definitely has a different characteristics than the other two did. Now, I believe these two are probably around the same mash bill. This one has a much higher rye content, so it drinks a little bit hotter or a little bit spicier than the other two did. With this one, it's budget enough. You can mix it if you want to, and that higher rye is gonna stand up in cocktails nicely. Or if you have it neat, it's also great too. It's got enough complexity. The price point is great. All right, so we had a sip of this already. We'll go for a bite of the candy. We'll go in for another nose here. It's crazy to me that if you're eating something or drinking something else, how much that can affect both the nose and the flavors of the palate on a whiskey. Because I'm definitely getting some either different notes or it's highlighting certain notes that I wasn't getting before, or at least weren't standing out to me as much. So far, the theme has been, after I eat the candy, it could be just the olfactory sense, but it makes the nose smell sweeter. Every single one of these so far, after I've nosed it the first time and taken a sip, had the candy, when I come back to the nose, it's just quite a bit sweeter than I was getting before, which is kind of interesting. All right, well, I'll take another sip here. I think the Reese has kind of amplified a little bit of everything. I was getting a little bit more sweetness, but that rye kick or that rye spice was kind of more in the foreground, more prominent there. I think that sweetness actually kind of amplified, or the sweetness from the candy amplified both the sweetness and the rye spice in this one. All right, so now we'll go for the last one here. This is the Larceny 92 proof. Again, this is the wheated one, so this will be a little bit sweeter than some of these other ones, especially the Wild Turkey. So we'll give it a try here. Yeah, so this one, at least to me personally, I get a little bit more of the vanilla caramel off of this one than I did with the other three. Also, the proof is going to be a little bit lower than all the others, which hopefully doesn't put it at a disadvantage right out of the gate, but we'll see. Like I said, sometimes, you know, higher proof can improve flavors. Sometimes it can actually detract from the flavors too. Sometimes you want just a nice mellow kind of sipping whiskey. So we'll go for the palate here. I don't know if, I probably should have maybe put these in a different order, but the Larceny, after having the Wild Turkey, it's just very mellow. It is a little bit sweeter. It doesn't have nearly as much as that kick to it like the rye had. I mean, this is just a very good sipping whiskey, just a very good one to have. It's not overly complex necessarily, but you do get a lot of the vanilla, caramels, a little bit of the baking spice, but not quite as much. There's maybe a little oak in there too, but again, it's not a whole ton. This isn't going to be aged super long, so the oak isn't going to be there quite as much either. I've got one more egg here. We'll open it up. Have some of the Reese's. All right, and we'll go in for the nose here after we had the candy. So on this one, it's kind of weird that it almost kind of dulled a lot of the nose that I was getting off of this one. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to say it erased it completely because you can still smell some things in this. Again, mostly the vanilla caramel, but I'm not really smelling as much out of this time as I did before I had the candy. Let's go in for a taste here. The flavors didn't really change a whole lot, but it is drinking quite a bit hotter than I did the first time when I just had it without the candy. So this one drank a little hotter. This one kind of amplified everything. So the sweetness and the rye kick, the candy kind of enhanced both of those. The Evan Williams didn't change a whole lot as far as I remember. It kind of just stayed about the same. And the Jim Beam Distiller's Cut, that one definitely kind of enhanced the peanut butter a little bit. I'd say it enhanced the flavor quite a bit on this one. So what I'm gonna do now is just kind of, I'll kind of speed through this in the editing, but I'll just go through and kind of just do a quick take, you know, back to back to back to back, just to see if anything changed. I'll go reverse order this time, so I'll start with the Larceny, go back to Jim Beam, and we'll see if I pick up anything different. And we're back. So I just kind of went through one more time, just kind of rapid fire bourbon, candy, bourbon, just to see which one I thought was best. Now again, this is going to be just my own personal preference, my own opinion. My first place is going to have to be the Jim Beam Distiller's Cut. Now, I thought this one, the profile of the bourbon matched really well with the peanut butter chocolate of the Reese's. Because even before I even had any of the candy, this one I was getting some peanut butter on the palate a little bit. So I think that probably helped it. But you get a little bit of that heat from the proof, but you also get just more flavors in general. So this is my number one. The number two pick I would have to say is the Wild Turkey. The Wild Turkey has more of kind of a spiciness, which I didn't think would necessarily maybe go with peanut butter as well, but apparently, you know, like I said, the Reese's kind of amplified both the sweetness and the spice. So this one was an interesting one for me. So we'll go with this as number two. Third and fourth place, it's kind of hard to say. Both the Larceny and the Heaven Hill, the Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, both of them still paired pretty well with it. It just, they didn't really stand out quite as much to me as the other two did. I would say if I had to pick probably the Evan Williams first, and then the Larceny fourth. Now, I want to say that bourbon and chocolate goes really well together. Chocolate, peanut butter, and bourbon goes really well together. So you really can't go wrong if you want to try this at home. If you've got some leftover Easter candy and you've got different bottles of bourbon, I'd highly recommend kind of setting up a tasting like this and try it for yourself. You can also try it just with milk chocolate, dark chocolate. Any of those things are going to be a little bit different as far as maybe pulling out certain spices, certain flavors from the bourbon, and even from the candy too. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, the winner was Jim Beam Distiller's Cut, but you can try it with any other Jim Beam product. You could also go low proof if you want to, or you could go all barrel proof if you want to go crazy. But we'll go Jim Beam for the first, Wild Turkey for the second, the 101, and then Evan Williams Bottled and Bond for third place, and the Larceny for fourth place. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you have a good Easter. All right, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. We'll try to get some more reviews out for you guys. I also have an Instagram account. I'll link that down in the bio. So again, happy Easter and cheers everyone.